Yo, good day, gents, and welcome to another episode of Father's Fire. My name's Jody Sedrick, as you know, and every week we get together to explore the joys, the challenges, the triumphs, the sorrows, and yes, the fun of being a dad. And I'm telling you, it is fun in our house. We are a week out from Christmas. The kids are starting to come home, and actually, Judy and I are actually ahead of the game. All of the presents are bought. They're all wrapped. I mean, I don't think that's ever happened in our life.
You're ahead of me, Jody.
I mean, it's crazy. So you heard my guest voice. I have a guest today. His name is Dr. Richard Wadsworth. I connected with him by recommendation from Shawnee the Kid, who's been a guest on this podcast multiple times. And so I started following Richard, and I just loved his approach to family, to religion, to relationships with husband and wife. And so I reached out to him, and we've been kind of playing a little scheduling tag, right?
It's my fault. It's my fault.
No, it's both of us. I mean, I have 6 kids, and I think you have 6 kids, correct?
I just have 7 kids now. Yeah.
7, dude. That's a bunch. So tell me a little bit about your family.
Yeah. So my wife and I have been married for 17 years. My oldest is 12. My youngest is 5 months, and 5 girls, 2 boys, and they're a lot of work. They're a lot of energy. I love it though. I love being a dad. I love being a husband. It's the biggest, most important thing in my life. I chose to be a medical doctor, and I specialized in psychiatry. And so a lot of what I do on TikTok is very heavily impacted by things that I've learned and things that I've read and things that I experience. A lot of times I'll be talking to patients, and they will relate things, that trauma that they've gone through, and I will try to hit on topics that I'm hoping will help people through the videos that I make. And I'm glad that you like what I write. Some people don't like it. There are actually quite a few people who get angry about things that I say and don't disagree with it. So this whole field is a very controversial field. The concept of family is something that is controversial. But I think that it's something that needs to be talked about, needs to be addressed. So I'm glad that you're doing this, Jody. I appreciate your work, and I'm happy to be a part of this.
Well, thank you. It's super fun. And, I've watched so many of your videos, and I think one of the things that really resonates with me as I'm watching a lot of your content is that you're really trying to get at the core of family through the relationship of the husband and wife, right? And this week you had a post, and it really hit me, because you were talking about a lot of men struggle with the lack of intimacy in their marriage. And you posted a little diagram that you've created in your curriculum that had a picture of a home. And at the top, the roof, you had sex. And then on the left pillar, you had romance. On the right pillar, you had family. And on the bottom, you had friendship.
Yep, absolutely. So let's talk about that a little bit. So the way that I've tried to approach the family unit is, first of all, the most important relationship in your family, in your home, is that between the husband and wife. Because the best thing that you can do for your children is have a solid marriage relationship. That is absolutely the thing that's going to help the kids the most. I mean, you want to just ruin the kids' lives, have a terrible marriage. That's the worst thing you can do for your kids. And I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of people about that. And a lot of times kids' anxiety and depression starts when mom and dad start fighting and they break up. And suddenly the garden of their lives is destroyed. It's burned to the ground. And then the kids are left trying to pick up the pieces and survive when they don't know which way's up and which way's down, and who loves them and what's secure and what's going to be there tomorrow. So absolutely best thing you can do for your kids' lives is have a good marriage. And so the way that I've approached marriage is different. I came up with this approach. In medicine, we break everything down to systems. We have the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system, the nervous system. And when we approach medicine, we diagnose and we evaluate and we treat based on these different systems. Even in our note writing, we will write these things. When we have specialists, we have a cardiologist, we have a neurologist. And so when I looked at a marriage, I tried to see it from that perspective, to break it down into what are its fundamental systems. And I found that there was four. I actually added a fifth on later. So I wrote a book called The Four Loves of Marriage. And in this, I take marriage and I break it down into, okay, what are the different relationships within the marriage relationship? If you were to break it down into its individual parts, it turns out that there are actually different ways that you and your wife relate with each other that are different, that are distinct. There's different rules involved. There's the maintenance of these different things. Not to say that they don't rely on each other. I mean, the cardiovascular system relies on the respiratory system, but they're still distinct and separate systems that need maintenance. They need attention individually. So I broke this down. You mentioned it a second ago. I tried to create it in a diagram in my first course. Is I broke it down to friendship is the first system. And you think, well, friendship, what do you mean friendship? Well, do I like you? Do I like you as a person? Do I like being around you? Do we enjoy each other's company? And there are a lot of, I could talk about this for hours, but there are a lot of psychological ways of approaching this, rules involved with enjoying or liking someone's company. And they are important things to understand. But people oftentimes, they get married and then they forget how to be friends. They're not treating this person like a friend anymore. And usually what this happens is as they introduce other types of ways of relating into the marriage relationship, these other aspects or ways of relating break down. So I'll go through them real quickly. First one is friendship. The second one is romance. And romance is another distinct kind of a way of relating. It's different from friendship. It has different rules. It has different, aspects to it, different feel to it. The third one is your sexual relationship. And that needs to be, and that's not a romantic relationship and sexual relationship. Those are different. Those are not the same thing, despite what many people think. Your sexual relationship does not replace your romantic relationship. These are distinct from one another. And then your last relationship is, I call it family, but it's family obligations. It's that once you become a family unit, you and your partner are married, it creates a completely different dynamic. Suddenly you're sharing a bank account, you're sharing a home, you're sharing responsibility over children. And oftentimes this is where friendship and romance and these other ones break down. Is all of a sudden it's like, okay, hey, you're not picking up your crap around the house. You're not helping me out with the kids. You're not doing these things. And suddenly they're criticizing, they're having these upset feelings. Friendship goes away, because if you cared about me, you would help me with these things, is how they feel. So then romance dies. And then once friendship and romance are dead, well, I don't want to sleep with somebody who doesn't care about me that I don't like. And so then their sex life goes out the window. So it's the maintenance of all four of these that have to be looked at. And there's one over, I'll talk about the other one in a second, but do you have any questions or thoughts so far?
Well, I think that's a really, I love the diagram of that, because I think back when you start dating, you start building that relationship, right? Everything is built, if you're doing it correctly, on building a friendship first, right? Judy and I dated for 3 years, right? She wanted to be very deliberate. And we actually, after we got married, we didn't have kids for 4 years. So we had 7 years where we were very purposeful in spending time together, learning each other, right? We had a strong base, right? But I think a lot of marriages start off flipped, right? They get attracted, they start with the sex, and that's great, that's exciting, all that stuff. But there's no friendship, there's no basis to build upon, right? And
it's so funny you're saying this, Jody. I was just recording this in my second course. Literally, it's on my screen right now before talking to you. Is that I laid out the ideal relationship is what you just said. You guys are friends first. And after you already know that you like this person, you already respect this person, you admire this person, you prefer this person, their personality, then you add romance. And then once you have romance, it's strong, it's burning, it's hot, then you introduce a sexual relationship and become a family after those things. But you are absolutely right, Jody. It is flipped nowadays. People have no friendship. They'll jump into a very brief, shallow romantic relationship that turns immediately into sex. and then they jump from sex to moving in with each other, and now they're in a family obligation setting with someone that they're not friends with, and they have a very shallow romantic relationship, and all they have is family and sex. But because the first two are broken in, the walls fall apart, the ceiling collapses, and then they don't even enjoy sex anymore, and then they get a divorce. You just nailed it, Jody. You have good insight into this. That was excellent.
Well, I've been married 33 years, right? And it's interesting because, you know, when I look back or when I'm talking to other fathers, a lot of times people are wondering why all of a sudden it's a surprise to them that their relationships crumbling, they're getting the divorce, their family's falling apart. And I'm like, whoa, dude, you haven't either built on a solid foundation or you haven't maintained the foundation. I mean, Judy and I have every week we go on a date.
So do my
every
wife
week.
and I, every week.
Right. And it's like, and some days, those weeks, those dates aren't super romantic. Some days they're just, hey, we're going to go run some errands. We're going to spend some time together. Afterwards, we're going to go get some ice cream or some cheesecake.
You talk to each other, don't you?
Exactly. Yep. Right. And then we come back and maybe watch a movie together. Right. But we have that time where we're just connected. We're one-on-one. You know, and it's so critical.
You know, Jody, you are absolutely right. I've been surprised by the same thing, is the level of cluelessness. And part of me wants to blame the guy and be like, oh, this stupid guy, he's acting like a caveman, you know, he's ignoring his wife, and then all he wants is sex. And then, and of course she wants to leave him because she doesn't even like him anymore because he's a slob, you know, but it really comes back to this podcast that you're doing right now. And this is giving examples and education. Where's this guy going to learn this stuff? Did he learn it from his dad? Probably not. Does he learn it at school? No. Where does he learn it? Where does he teach it? Where's the example? There isn't any. He doesn't learn this anywhere unless he finds podcasts like this one where we're teaching these things. This is exactly why I'm doing my course. This is exactly why I do the TikTok that I do. I'm trying to educate men. And a lot of guys are like, this is where people get mad at me. And they say, why are you blaming the men for everything? I'm like, whoa. I'm not trying to cast blame on anybody. I'm not trying to blame you. That's not what I'm about. I'm trying to teach you, because the fact of the matter is your wife doesn't like you. She doesn't enjoy being around you. And it's not her fault either. She can't force herself to like you. You need to engage in behaviors that will make you likable. Okay. You know, this is where the training comes in, because people don't realize it. It's almost like a guy. I gave an example of this. If a guy, you know, sprays cologne all over his body, you know, a cheap cologne, and he goes to a dance and everybody's like, oh man, I got to get away from this guy. He stinks. And nobody wants to be around him. And he's like, hey, how come nobody wants to be around me? What's going on? You know, and he's all upset about it. And then one of his friends comes over and is like, buddy, you know, you're wearing way too much cologne. Like, you stink. And he's like, hey, what are you blaming me for? I'm like, I'm not blaming you. I'm trying to help you, because you have forgotten, or maybe you never knew how to become friends with your partner. You've forgotten, or maybe you never knew how to be a good romantic partner. And your wife needs that. She needs romance. She needs friendship. And that's what she needs in order to have a good sexual relationship. And I know you want to make love with her. I know that's important to you. But you know what? Things are important to her too. And if you don't manage those things, your relationship will fall apart. And expecting anything else is insane. It's not gonna work. This is the whole point of why I'm making marriage courses, why I'm doing the TikTok, why I'm doing everything. So, Jody, you and I are absolutely, we are totally hitting on these things. Absolutely the same.
We're of like minded, and I think, you know, that's a good point that you make. A lot of men haven't been taught, or they haven't been modeled on what it takes to build a good relationship, because a lot of them are coming from broken homes themselves. Absolutely. Right. Yep. And I've had a lot of conversations with men, and they're like, I don't even know where to begin. And so I've decided to at least try to be the dad that I wanted to have. Mm-hmm. Right. So they're approaching it from the standpoint of that with their kids. But I think a lot of them don't even know where to begin to build that relationship with their wife, because they started the relationship flipped.
Yeah. And they didn't know any better. They were probably a
Yeah.
young man driven by sex drive, and they just rushed in and they did what they saw in the movies. I mean, movies are horrible examples of these things too. And and so where are their role models? Where's their example coming from? So you said you had a great father, is that correct?
I had a great father.
So did I. My
Yeah.
dad is a salt of the earth, fantastic man, loving husband, good father, and but we're an anomaly. This is not a
Yeah.
common thing. And so what do men do that don't have those kinds of fathers? Where do they learn how to be a good father or a good husband or any of these things? So what you're doing is so important, Jody. Very glad that you're doing it.
Yeah, it's funny. Years ago, I worked as a graphic designer at this company and had a really good friend. He was a former Marine, and he and I really connected. And so I invited him to a weekend with my family. My parents came in, and our family is really big about being on the water, being on the boat, right? And so he came out, he water skied, and him and my dad just connected because my dad's a Navy vet, he's a Marine vet, and they were like two peas in a pod. And they had a fantastic time. And on Monday morning, when I came into work, he said, "Jody, man," he goes, "Thank you so much for inviting me. I had such a great time. I love visiting with your dad, but your family's messed up." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Your family's not normal. You like each other." He goes, "That is not normal for families."
It's sadly not normal. Your friend is absolutely right. Most married couples can't stand each other. The wife sees the husband as another one of the children, and she doesn't like him, and he's not thinking about things that she would like that she would like, and that all he wants is sex, and they don't like each other. And then, of course, if the parents can't even get along, how are the kids supposed to get along? If
Yeah.
if my models, my examples here are always arguing with each other, and it's obvious that they don't enjoy each other's company, they don't even want to go on dates, you know, how are the kids supposed to even have a chance if the adults can't even do it? So
Yeah.
yeah, it is a weird thing in today's society, which is very unfortunate, and hopefully
So
it can change.
So let me ask you a question then. Given that is more of the norm, right? How do we break this cycle, right? I mean, you're dealing with it every day,
Yeah.
in your practice. So, what kind of tools are you trying to arm people with to help them build out of this situation?
That is a fantastic question. So I think it comes from mainly my approach is education, to let people know, okay, here is how your marriage works. Here is how it's almost like health or anything else. People, first of all, they need to understand, all right, well, how do I become healthy? What are healthy behaviors? What are healthy foods? And then you teach them how to do it. So when it comes to marriage, if you just look at, okay, this is what will create marital health. This is how it works. These are the kinds of things that you should be doing. Like what you brought up a moment ago, going on a weekly date. How many partners? So I just ran an assessment of people's marriages. I put this on TikTok. Hundreds of people responded. They filled out data. I asked about everything from their sex life to their friendship to their romantic life to how much money they were saving and everything. I asked like 50 questions. Got all kinds of responses back. You know what the number one thing was that people rated the lowest?
Sex, probably.
No, no, it wasn't sex. But I have to say though that my results were skewed because it was predominantly women that took my exam. So from a woman's perspective, there were 24.
Okay.
There were only 24 men. There were hundreds of women. From the women's perspective, it was a question that I asked about the quality and frequency of their dates. And
Mm,
that was the lowest rated item on my assessment of hundreds of people, is that they were utterly dissatisfied with the fact that they and their partner were not dating each other. So if there's one message, one take home, I know we're getting close to 20 minutes here. If there's one take home that I could give on marriage, is start going on weekly dates. Think about driving a car. If I have a car and I'm like, oh, I bought this fantastic Lamborghini or something, and I'm driving it around, I drive it for years, and I never change the oil. If that engine breaks down, Should I be surprised? Like, what happened? My engine broke down. No, what the heck are you doing? You never changed the oil? What is the matter with you? If
Yeah.
you think, if you have any concept in your mind that your marriage is going to last any amount of time without you taking your wife on regular dates and having good conversations with her, you are delusional. You you need to be putting more time into your marriage than you do your car. That would be my take home message right there, is date each other.
I love that. So I don't want it to escape. What is that fifth thing in your diagram that you've added?
That is self-love. Okay.
Mm.
And the reason why I put this in there is because there are two people in every relationship, and one of those people is you. And one of the best ways that you can improve your marriage is working on improving yourself. And this means being a good person, following your conscience, being honest, working hard, being true to yourself, taking care of yourself, doing things where you can respect yourself as a human. Because if you're not loving yourself in that way, if you're not being true to yourself, then you're only putting you're putting a less than you can into the marriage from your perspective, because there's two people, and you just damage the relationship by not being true to yourself, not taking care of yourself. And that goes further than even just self-care. I mean, we could go on, but this is a whole nother topic, but you got to take care of yourself.
Well, and I really appreciate that, because I'm reading the book Atomic Habits, and the thing that really impacted me, and I hadn't even really thought about it, but it's kind of the way Judy and I have lived. And he was sharing how we tend to make lists of things that we want to do, right? I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to get fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, we need to change the language from what you're going to do to what you're going to be.
I love that.
Right. So I am a fit person. Like, people know my family. I mean, the kids' friends say, man, your family is so fit, right? We have this mindset in our family of we are a fit family. Judy and I work out together every single day, except for Sundays, right?
You're right on track, because it is behaviors that follow identity, not identity that follows behaviors. So if you want to start acting different, you need to start being different. You need to identify yourself as am I a smoker? Not do I smoke? I'm not a smoker. Well, then you're not going to smoke. Or I'm a fit person. I'm someone who exercises. Well, then you're going to start exercising. You're absolutely on track. This stuff goes into, I wrote a book called The 9 Steps of Change, where I addressed these things and broke it down into 9 formulas that you're exactly online with this, again, with what I'm talking about.
Well, you got to send me your books, and I will put them in the show notes, because I think they're very, I'm anxious to jump into it. And it's ironic, because when I was younger, I wasn't big on self-investment when it came to books, right? But man, the last 8 years, actually, ever since we started the adoption process, the last 13 years, I've been very purposeful in going, who do I want Jody to be? What kind of father do I want to be? What kind of husband do I want to be? What do I need to become? Because I don't like what just happened in our family. Right. And I think we as fathers, we as husbands, can set the pace by, to your point, investing in a little self-care, a little self-attention, a little self-improvement, and a lot of self-love. Because I think a lot of men judge themselves out of the lens of yesterday, instead of using yesterday as a foundation to go, all right, this is where I am today, and this is who I want to be, and this is what I need to become.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It starts by choosing the things that you have power over. You choose your surroundings. If you drive, if you commute to work, get an audiobook. Listen to an audiobook about self-help, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Atomic Habits, 9 Steps of Change. Listen to something. Surround yourself with good thoughts That's going to impact your thoughts. Your thoughts is going to impact your mood. Your mood is going to drive your motivation, and your motivation is going to determine what kind of person you become. So it all starts with your surroundings. I love that you brought that up, and I think it's a very important point.
Well, that's good. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. I have loved this conversation. We're gonna have to do a round two because there's so deep we can go, man. So how do people connect with you? Obviously on TikTok, you have 2 TikTok channels, Richard Wadsworth and Dr. Richard Wadsworth, correct?
I do. Yeah, one of them is more my personal one where I just mostly talk about religious subjects. Mostly for members of the Church of Jesus Christ that are struggling with testimony related things. The other one is more psychology, more marriage, more family related. And that would probably be my main account. But yeah, connection is docwadsworth.com. And I have a marriage assessment and book links to my books on there. At Dr. Wadsworth is how to get on me on TikTok. And I'm on Instagram and YouTube as well.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for being my guest. I've absolutely loved this conversation. So guys, I will put links to some of his books. Of course, I will put a link into my book, Learning to Dance with the Currents of Life When You Feel Like You're Drowning. And I'm really close to finishing my second book, which I hope to release before Father's Day. We will see. Knock on wood, do all that stuff. But yeah, I'm really, really close. So, but thank you again for being my guest. You guys that are tuning in, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And we will check you same time, same bad channel just next week, right here on Father's Fire. See ya!